You've heard the stories, right? There's this one patch of ocean, it's become a legend, a place where ships and planes supposedly just vanish, where the rules don't seem to apply. Yep, we are talking about the Bermuda Triangle, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. Listen to that again. Those were the last chilling words from the leader of Flight 19, a group of 5 U.S. Navy bombers back in 1945. After that message, nothing. They and all 14 men on board just disappeared. Poof. And that single event right there is what really kicked this whole legend into high gear. So what's really going on? Is this part of the Atlantic some kind of paranormal vortex? Or is there something, well, less spooky behind all the fear? That's what we're here to find out. We're going to dig in, separate the facts from the fiction, and see where the evidence actually leads. All right, first things first. To really get a handle on this myth, we need to know where we're talking about. But you're about to see that even the map of the Bermuda Triangle is, well, it's a little fuzzy. And here it is, the infamous triangle. Generally, people say it stretches between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. We're talking about a huge area, over 500,000 square miles of ocean. But here's the first really, really important clue. This is not some deserted, forgotten corner of the world. It is one of the busiest shipping and flight paths on the planet. And that little fact, it is absolutely key to solving this whole thing. And get this, here's maybe the biggest crack in the whole legend, right from the start. If you ask the US government, or NOAA, or the Coast Guard, the Bermuda Triangle doesn't exist. It's not on any official map. They just don't recognize it as a real place with any special dangers. So, if the experts don't even recognize it, how did all these wild stories even start? Well, the legend wasn't just pulled out of thin air. It was built on some very real and honestly very tragic events. A handful of key disappearances created this idea that something strange was happening, something that just couldn't be a coincidence. And these stories go way back, even before anyone had ever heard the name Bermuda Triangle. Let's jump back to 1918. This is one of the single biggest and most mysterious losses the U.S. Navy has ever had. This is the USS Cyclops, a huge ship sailing a totally normal route from Barbados to Baltimore. It never sent a distress call. The search for it was massive, but they found nothing. No wreckage, no lifeboats, not a single survivor. It was just gone. But the one case, the one that really sealed this place's spooky reputation, didn't involve a ship at all. It was a whole squadron of planes. I mean, just think about how crazy this sounds. You've got 5 U.S. Navy bombers. They're on a simple training mission. The pilots are experienced, and they just get lost. But it gets weirder. The rescue plane they send out to find them disappears too. There was a report from a tanker about a big explosion right around where that rescue plane should have been. But in the end, after all the searching, not one single piece of wreckage from any of those 6 planes was ever found. No way. Okay, so you have these incredibly strange and tragic events. They're real head-scratchers, but how do a few isolated incidents become this massive global legend? The answer, it turns out, isn't out there in the ocean. It's in our newspapers and on our bookshelves. Yeah, see, the Bermuda Triangle isn't some ancient sailor's myth passed down for centuries. Nope. It was pretty much invented in the 1950s and 60s. A writer named Vincent Gaddis was the first to really connect the dots and give it that catchy name. But the guy who made it a superstar was Charles Berlitz. In 1974, he wrote a book that mixed the real stories with some seriously wild theories. We're talking aliens, Atlantis, the whole shebang. That book sold millions of copies, and just like that, the modern myth was born. And for a long, long time, those supernatural ideas were pretty much all you heard about. It was all aliens and energy vortexes. But then, scientists, investigators, and journalists started to go back. They started digging into the original reports. And when they did, the whole mystery started to fall apart. And this quote right here from scientist Karl Krzyzewski really gets to the heart of it. He's saying that the number of accidents isn't actually that weird. When you think about just how many planes and ships are constantly passing through here, well, accidents are going to happen. The rate isn't any higher than other busy parts of the ocean. So, if it's not some paranormal hotspot, then what is happening out there? The real answer isn't one big, flashy, sci-fi explanation.
It's actually a combination of a few very powerful, very real things that all happen to come together right in this one spot. So let's break down the real culprits behind the disappearances.
First off, the environment in this region is just brutal. It's known as Hurricane Alley for a reason. On top of that, you've got the Gulf Stream, which is basically a massive, powerful river inside the ocean. It can spawn its own nasty weather in a heartbeat. And then you've got the possibility of rogue waves. We're talking walls of water 100 feet high, plus tons of shallow, dangerous reefs. You put all that together, you have a recipe for disaster without needing any aliens or curses. Okay, but what about all those stories about compasses going haywire? Well, that's a real thing, but it's not a mystery. See, a compass points to magnetic north, not true north, the actual North Pole. That difference is something sailors and pilots have known about for centuries. The Bermuda Triangle is one of the few places on Earth where those two norths can actually line up. For an old-timey navigator who wasn't ready for it, that could definitely be confusing, but it's just normal, predictable Earth science, not some paranormal force field.
Now, here's a theory you might have heard that sounds really scientific and cool. It's the idea of methane hydrates, basically huge bubbles of frozen gas on the ocean floor. The theory goes that one of these could suddenly burst, releasing a massive plume of gas. The water above it would become way less dense, and any ship sailing over it would just drop like a rock and sink in seconds. Sounds plausible, right? But science has to check the evidence, and the U.S. Geological Survey looked into it. Their conclusion? There's no evidence that any big gas release like that has happened in the Bermuda Triangle for at least the last 15,000 years. So, fascinating idea, but it's not what's sinking ships and taking down planes. Okay, so let's put it all together. We've looked at the scary stories, we've looked at how the myth got so big, and we've looked at the actual science. So what's the final verdict on these so-called Devil's Triangle? It's pretty clear when you put it side by side. The myth says there's a crazy high number of disappearances. The reality? It's a totally normal number for such a busy place. The myth blames aliens and paranormal forces. The reality? It's a combination of bad weather and, sometimes, people making mistakes. The myth says it's a uniquely cursed zone. The reality? It's one of the most traveled shipping lanes in the entire world. And if you're still not convinced, just follow the money. Lloyd's of London is one of the biggest insurers in the world. Their entire job is to calculate risk. And you know what? They don't charge a single extra penny for ships that sail through the Bermuda Triangle. If there was any real, measurable danger there, you can bet they'd be charging more for it. In the end, the Bermuda Triangle's real power isn't in sinking ships. It's in capturing our imagination. The mystery was built on embellished stories and our love for the unknown, all while the simple, logical explanations got ignored. The truth is, science has pretty much explained the Bermuda Triangle, so the real mystery might just be, why are we so drawn to the spooky story instead of the real one?